CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success. All right, folks, welcome back to CMMS Radio. I got two fellas I really enjoy bringing on for you. These guys get it. They know what they're talking about when it comes to not just maintenance, reliability, and asset management, but they work with a lot of systems. They can help you fix your culture. They can help you get the process going. I'm talking about Stefan and Joe, both with Elevotec, and these fellas are heading to SMRP out in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's the 2026 annual conference. If you want to get a discount to get into that event, use the code CMMS Radio, all smushed together, all caps, save yourself 10%. Does nothing for me. It's only for you. It's so you can hook up with these guys. Plus, you need to know where to find them. So number one, Elevotec is a platinum sponsor of the SMRP annual conference. That's important. That means they're not shy about telling you they care about this industry. Second thing, booth 1202 is where you're going to find them. Ask them anything. Doesn't matter. They're going to answer you. If they don't have an answer, they'll tell you. And you're going to find these guys over at the CMMS Radio booth, booth number 530, at some point when they're not getting overrun by people at the booth, to do a little bit of recording at the CMMS Radio special production. So, fellas, welcome back to CMMS Radio.
Hey, we're glad to be back, Greg. We're excited. This is back-to-back CMMS's at our CMMS Radio spots and at SMRP. So we're pretty excited to do SMRP again as a platinum sponsor, and we got a premier booth, and looking forward to getting a lot of people through it.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was looking at the map, and you guys are in the right spot. Actually, you're really close to my friends right there at MaintainX.
Yeah, we're right beside them, which is exciting too. So we're all right huddled together there. You can come visit.
Yeah, cover a lot of ground in one spot. Joe, what are you most excited about this year? Because, you know, every year it's a little bit different. So you get a little bit of the same, but a little bit different because you'll get new people. You'll see a bunch of old friends. But what are you most excited about this year as it relates to the industry, SMRP, and what's going on at Elevotec?
Yeah, so first, thanks for having us, and we are extremely excited to be on today, and certainly going to get with you when you're there and attend the show. The first, the last time around was very exciting. It talked a lot about some technological advances that we're seeing on both the maintenance and reliability side. I look forward to seeing more of that great conversation that goes on and being able to interchange experience, being able to continually interchange different solutions and different things that folks are starting to branch out, starting to realize that we're no longer a pen and paper, right? We're pretty far away from that conversation. We're getting out of we're just a ticketing type, solution or strategy to a more advanced and, relative to what people need in order to kind of do what they do every day. There's conversations that Stefan and I are having today with other customers, and a big one is about cost avoidance. And there are things that we've talked about is we've got this kind of industry concept of, well, we got to measure our maintenance costs, we got to measure all of this and measure all of that, and well, that's all pretty well and fine and pretty old, but how about measuring how reliable you are?
Yeah. That's the sweet spot when it comes to everybody's talking about how quit treating it as a cost center and all this stuff. Well, then the question is, what's the alternative? Well, if we're talking reliability, that's going to hit the sweet spot right on the balance sheet, and we're talking about the P, not the L.
Right.
And then you also talked about this idea behind the cost of inaction, and I want to hear a little bit more about that. What do you really mean?
Yeah, so the other piece we've been talking about is, we always talk about, oh, it costs this much and it costs that much and it costs this much. And, the latest conversations we've been having is, let's start talking about cost avoidance. Why don't you start focusing on what needs to remove those hard discussions of why does it cost this much? Well, why don't you start having the conversation that if we don't invest or we don't focus or we don't understand or we don't get curious about, that's what it's going to cost. And we probably should start focusing on cost avoidance and not fluff it off as, well, it's kind of a maybe and all this other stuff. No, 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 no. Cost avoidance is real. And there are aspects through timely trends or catastrophic failure behavior that have happened in time. And if there's been no change in activity or behavior or mindset, then guess what? That's going to be a conversation point in the future. So why don't we get curious about it and do some cost avoidance with that? So when you think about those pieces, what do you start to look at? You start to look at how people are talking about maintenance and trying to do prevention, right? Our idea here is not to let organizations be unreliable or not to have maintenance organizations fail. It's the steps we take to make them reliable. It's the steps we take in order to continually be better at what we're supposed to do, and that's to maintain and operate, right? And when we're making those conversations and when we're investing, whether it be in a cultural change or whether that be in a process change or strategy change. And with today's technology of being able to monitor and listen and let machines talk to machines, guess what? We can now start talking about cost avoidance, because if I've listened to a sensor, for example, over the last year, it's going to tell me what I want to know. And that's going to tell me, the ebbs, the peaks and the valleys that I'm going to do some compares, overlay some seasonality, different things of that nature. And well, if we kind of went through that last year, the likelihood is that it's probably going to somewhat look the same next year. So why don't we try to get ahead of it and do some cost avoidance by understanding those indicators that the machine is clearly telling us?
Well,
we value every person's opinion. I mean, we value it, but the reality is a machine, when it speaks to you in facts. It doesn't have feelings. It doesn't have emotions. It doesn't have an opinion. It tells you the facts. And I think one of the things that we've always landed on and we talk to people about is, when you're working closer to the fact, then you're working closer with reality. And when you have reality and facts that you can work with, then you can bring about solid change.
yeah, for sure. And Stefan, I wanted to kind of have you chime in right there as well and build on that, because I keep thinking about this idea, and you already said it, Joe, but I'm going to steal something from George Williams, where he says, look, your assets don't care if you're having a bad day. They don't care if you can't get to it. They're going to do what they do. They're either going to be running well, running moderate, like not so great, or they're going to fail. So, Stefan, what would you do to build on that, what Joe's talking about here? And I really want to hear about the technology, the advancements.
Yeah. So it's building on what Joe's saying about reliability and cost avoidance or cost reduction. It's sort of we try to sell that to, like, again, we talked about this, about bottom up, top down philosophies. We try to sell that to the C-suite. Like we try to sell to them, you got to do more with reliability, you got to do more with cost avoidance. And we say to them, like, we just had one, I guess it was a couple of years ago, where we're a large fleet company. And I said, basically, what would happen if you could get one extra year life out of a piece of equipment? Okay. And just to kind of mull that over, let's say a large truck asset lasts 10 years and you have to replace it, right? Mm-hmm. So if you got an extra year out of it, well, this company spends $30 million a year on capital replacement. So now, if I put in a better reliability program and and break down the day-to-day cost avoidance, I also am going to improve my asset life cycle. And if I can go to 11 years now, I've saved a full year of capital expenditure as well. So I think it's like save the dollars, right? Save the pennies, save the dollars, and save the hundreds of thousands of dollars or the millions of dollars, right? It's kind of tied to the same buck is tied both ways. And I was gonna, because when you said about the sensors, I was pretty impressed last year at SMRP with all the sensor people there. Like every third booth there was people with sensors and top notch things, and the asset stuff that we tie into, it ties right into the sensor level. And whether you're talking about vibration in a building or in a bridge or something, those sensors can trigger inspection reports, things like that. So that the technology is starting to line up really well with the applications. And yeah, go ahead.
So when we talk about all the sensor monitoring companies and all the technologies, I mean, there's a lot of variance within, and I think a lot of them are similar. They might have their nuance. I say that about CMMS or EAM as well, right? They're like almost all the same, but then there's this 20% that's really specific about what they do, why they do. This one has that, this one doesn't. Do you really need that? Same thing goes with the sensors. And one of the older, like within the last couple of years or so, kind of things that people kind of maybe take a dig at that technology is, oh, if you're using wireless sensors everywhere, now you just created all this other kind of problem and workload when it comes to routing for battery changes and monitoring. But we've even seen in the last couple of years where battery life has improved to be 5 years and beyond. And now if that holds, that's helpful. But I'm really curious. So two things. On the sensors, I want to hear kind of your opinion, experience, whatever you want to call that, as it relates to over censoring versus censoring what needs to be censoring. And then maybe when you're done with that, we kick it back to Joe, because I want to talk about the different technologies that I like that you guys represent now when it comes to CMMS and EAM. So for you, Stefan, on those sensors, over censoring, under censoring, spot on censoring, what's that all about?
Well, I think I'll have to defer to Joe on that. Joe's done a lot more work with the sensor part. I was just going to add, just before you asked me that, about one of the technologies that is kind of getting exciting, and that's the visualizations of the 3D modeling. We're doing a big project right now related to bridges, and having 3D modeling, CAD 3D modeling of the bridges and knowing where your assets are, I think is a big thing that excites me. I was going to say last year was sensors. This year I'm more excited about the 3D visualizations. But I'll let Joe talk about sensors, because I know he's got some more background on that than I do. So,
okay, real quick though, on the scanning and the visualization, the modeling of the bridges and other infrastructure, could be buildings, whatnot. Is that technology that I saw maybe 2 years ago, a year or two back at the Streamline conferences, where that's within Octave,
right,
where they can literally use various devices, whether it be like a robot dog or drone systems that can actually move around and do the mapping.
Well, no, it's not the mapping. It's built into the application. You can ingest a 3D drawing, like a CAD drawing. So you can
so the as-built drawing,
model, and then you can use the CAD model that identifies the assets on that model. So, and then you can manage it's really helpful when you talk about structures and positions, because you can manage the assets now on that model. So if assets have to go in and out, or you can visualize maintenance or inspections on that model, or where your sensors are. In the case of a bridge vibration, for example, things like that. So it's very cool that you can visualize this stuff right in your maintenance system now. So before, where you have to go out to a drawing or paper drawing or some other system to see where does that actually, what level is that asset sitting on, now you can go right inside your asset management system and see the modeling of that drawing inside the system and use it. So
Yeah,
sort of like in the past, you used to have, remember, you used to talk about GIS, you can model maps. Now you can actually model the CAD drawings three-dimensionally, like a BIM inside the actual application. You go right to the model. So it's really
yeah,
cool.
that's time to value so that you can move quicker and get right to where you need to be, and you know exactly where it's happening, and you save all that other time.
Yeah.
So Joe,
yeah, go ahead.
back onto the sensors and what I was asking about, you know, the differences in over censoring, under censoring, or getting it spot on, and then maybe you can tack onto that the technologies, because you're representing a few more technologies from a CMMS and EAM perspective, not just Octave.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we have a tendency, generally there's a tendency when you start to see some good return out of a sensor, for example, that, you know, there's almost a fever that, well, let's just censor everything. Well, here's a reality. And I think this is, again, our level of experience and our opinion that it's like everything else. What's going to hurt me the most, or what's going to fail and bring me to a stop, should be the primary focus. So when you think about a production line, or you think about a large value stream, or you think about maybe a critical roadway, um, focus on those things first, because if you are getting the value that you expected out of your most critical assets, um, then that gives you the runway to figure out if you've reached kind of the end of the road on your sensor investment, right? Because at the end of the day, I could put a sensor on a ceiling fan here, and I can also go down a road to the supply hall and buy it off the shelf. You know, I don't know that that would be you know, value invested. Now let's change. Let's just pivot on that. If I was the operation of a pharmaceutical production facility, then yep, I would, because if that is a critical utility that is maintaining the building envelope for normal operating pressures in order to ensure, then yeah, I would make that investment. So what we advocate to people is recognize who you are, right? When you recognize who you are as an operation, as a value stream, then recognize within your value stream, where are you going to fail, or where are you going to be less reliable that would produce results that aren't to the standard that you would want to produce to. Now start to get those critical control points in your maintenance plan and make the investment there. And as you make those investment, and as you put those in, and as you improve them, the next set of critical control points will start to naturally, through osmosis, start to come up, because you're going to start to do that. And with those two dynamics, when folks focus on that, it isn't about throwing 1,000 sensors and getting a signal out of 10,000 points. It's about applying the right sensor in the right place to give me the right information so that I can perform. So I hope that that helps. I am super, super excited. And Stefan, I'm glad that you brought it up. Visualization is exciting. And you know, we've had this conversation. We believe that the future of a maintenance organization will be far more visual than it will be tabular. We are already seeing, you know, we have the capability on something very simple as chatting with our EAM system with a messaging app that I can talk to it, I can see it, I can move on about my business. Something that simple is making people informed and knowledgeable. Now, as we go and we look at visualization, I know the term that's out there is BIM, but it is our opinion that the term BIM, while it's great, is meant for building maintenance essentially. We believe that the term will grow into something like EM for equipment, because when you think about, and that asset class that Stefan was talking about, we'll take you to one dynamic. So a bridge structure, its expectancy is great. It's not something that's going to fail in the next 10 years, right? It has a long life expectancy. What is very critical is through its operation and through its maintenance cycles through the life is even the wear patterns, even the wear and tear of the bridge, although what might start as a little crack, it isn't going to mature into something catastrophic in days. It tends to have a long lifetime. So, where I'm going with that is when I can visually see a 3D coupled with a 2D, and now I'm looking at my nonconformities and I can visually see, now I can actually take some cuts of where I want to do some rehabilitation or I need to go and do some capital. I can visually see that. I can generate heat maps that support what I should be doing with that. So I'll give you another critical asset that we are also working with, and they are in stamping. So they stamp metal products. And I will tell you that 1/16 of an inch on a die would literally be catastrophic in the quality of the product that they're turning out. And what is key and critical for them is to basically be able to refer to that finite design and go right into it to ensure that they're measuring as close as they can to meet the quality standard, right? And that is very difficult on a piece of paper with a, kind of all-time scribe or an all-time ruler and stuff like that. We aren't there anymore. It
Right.
needs to be here. I need to see it. I need to measure it. I need to visualize it, because when I can see it, I can act on it. So we are absolutely excited. The bigger exciting part is the speed of producing that visualization, not only on a desktop, but in mobile, with a mobile device, right? And let's face it, we've kind of been talking mobile for the last 4 or 5 years, and I think now we're really starting to hit. We're starting to hit some good speed on the mobile piece, especially when I can turn to a mobile device and see a visualization like that otherwise would have me driving back to my desk in order to go and see it. So super exciting stuff. And you talk about that part of visualization, and you talk about the ability to maintain and operate and be sustainable, right, and be reliable. How much longer is it going to take, or how much cost am I going to occur that I could avoid by not driving to the office to go and find a bunch of drawings or to look at somebody's site? I got it right here. And that's how we start to change this messaging of maintenance cost versus the cost of being reliable.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Savings
that
of being reliable.
that piece on reliability and being reliable, it feels like there's more understanding now than there was in the past. Hard to say, but and I've been talking about this a lot lately, where we've got to find a way to get organizational leadership to start to value it in the right perspective rather than seeing it differently because it's hiding on the balance sheet or they think it's a cost. When you develop reliability and you have strong reliability programs, those are not things that start to work and you can now cut them. Those have to be maintained, much like maintenance serves the machine so that the machine can be reliable. And it all works like that. It's not complicated. People make it complicated either on purpose or willfully, right? Or maybe they just don't understand. So we got to keep working on that. Kicking it back to Stefan before we wrap up here. One thing I was curious about, I was going to let you answer this, Joe, but I'm going to have Stefan do it. So, primarily, and I know Elevotec is beyond strong when it comes to Octave and EAM and those best practices, connecting the whole story, getting it set up right, all those things. But you also have some others that you support. So what I'm wondering is, can you share about eMaint?
Yeah. So, so we've had a lot of success with as you can tell by when you hear Joe talk, is we are sort of have that expertise in the field in general. And what we do is when we talk to customers, like one flavor doesn't always fit everybody. Like not everybody wants a chocolate cone, right? And even though we're a big proponent of the Octave products and we implemented them, it just becomes every once in a while that somebody wants vanilla, and we can't convince them that chocolate's a better flavor. So for the people that we have that are a little want a little something a little different, a little more specific to a particular need, we decided to also partner with eMaint. And eMaint is a good tool. We won't be talking much about it at SMRP this year, but because it's still fairly new to us. But yeah, I think it's just a basic fact that as we've been, I guess this is our 6th year, and we do a lot of besides the private sector, we do a lot of RFPs, public sector, and so we see a lot of different types of questions asked about specific functionality, specific ways of doing it. And when you deal a lot with public sector too, they're very restrictive in the way they want to do it. They're not like, they don't come to us and say, okay, Joe, you're the expert. Tell us how we should run things. They're more
right. It's the opposite.
Yeah, they're like saying, we like to do it backwards. Tell us how to do it backwards, or we like to do it this specific way. Now, of course, when we engage with them, we bring them closer to normal again, anyhow. But I'm just saying, it's just one of those cases where we decided to diversify a little bit on our product line to have the vanilla and the chocolate. And we're excited about that. I think it's just making us stronger. It makes us think about things a little differently too. But going back to what Joe said about reliability and that, the bottom line for organizations, whether they're private sector, public sector, is things got to stay running. You know what I mean? And what you want to be able to do is, there's different steps. There's analytics. There's an execution of that maintenance program, and the faster you can get information and the more data you can get on a problem, it still takes that expert mind and those hands to actually fix it. But the more we help those people with the tools available to them, like at their fingertips or quickly responsive, it shortens the downtime for that equipment. And that's really what everybody wants to do. They want to have that equipment up and running sooner, and they want it to last longer. And all these tools are really just designed to help the maintenance mechanics and the reliability experts to facilitate that shortening of the downtime windows.
Yeah,
helps everybody, and it goes to the bottom line. And again, the executive people need to understand the importance of maintenance. Like maintenance is like the blood that runs through your company. You have to have because they're the life of the assets. It's how long you want your assets to live. Well, you don't take away the blood. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that's and I've been a plant manager in past lives, and realizing that early on in my career, I try to tell everybody about it now a little more like an evangelist, but it is the blood of the company, and you have to keep that running.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, first of all, fellas, I appreciate you making time today so that we could do this. I really want people to go and talk to you when they're at SMRP. Reminder, everyone, when you register for SMRP, use that code CMMS Radio, all caps, smush it together, save 10%. Hit booth 1202 and hang out with these fellows at Elevotec. You might come over to CMMS Radio booth 530 when they're there, when other people are there. We're going to be talking about this, but talk to these guys. It actually doesn't even matter what solutions you have in place. If you've got issues with maintenance, with reliability, because those are two separate things, maintenance sets you up for greater reliability, which sets up your entire organization to thrive, because we want more good product going out the door that's high quality. That's what it's all about. Thank you, fellas, and Elevotec for being back with me here on CMMS Radio.
Thanks for having us.
Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit cmmsradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.